Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. Happy Thanksgiving past for for our Canadian viewers. Peter, did you load up on turkey and stuffing?
Yeah, it's funny. My kids aren't the biggest turkey fans. So, and they're basically adults. So I don't know what their problem is, but that's another discussion. So my wife and I, we make turkey, and we didn't make a full turkey. We bought some turkey legs and stuff and did that. And what I did was I'm really into sous vide cooking. Now, sous vide cooking is
okay, Ak.
Okay. Sous vide cooking is this cool gadget, and it was kind of it's done by a lot of top end chefs. Thomas Keller is one who really kind of brought it to prominence. And what it is you basically seal. So what I do is I bought a boneless leg of lamb, and I marinated it, and I put it in a vacuum bag sealer. So I sealed it, take all the air out. So you get a big pot with water in it, and you stick this device on the edge of the pot and you sort of wedge it on. And what it does is it heats up the water and circulates it. So you have all these different recipes. What happens is it cooks it in this vacuum bag, and it doesn't lose anything as it cooks because it's all sealed. So it keeps all the flavors and juices in. So what I did is I cooked this as about a 3-pound leg of lamb, and I put it in the water for 10 hours at 134 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I took it out and just put it in a piping hot skillet, just browning the outside. It was to die for. It is just fabulous. You've never had better steaks than this either, doing it this way.
Russ, see, this is the thing. I think I prefer those idiots who take a garbage can and stick a 20-pound turkey in a vat of hot oil, and it explodes in their front lawn, and then eats the turkey.
You know what? You've got to stop going to Bills games, Mike. It's just completely
I've gone to one in 17 years.
Actually, I should talk about that. The opening for the Bills game, and this is just a little sidebar. They were like, "Well, it's gray and it's nasty out, but it's Buffalo." Like, I was like, "Really? This is your opening?" But anyhow.
Please, that was the most anti-Buffalo crew. I don't know who
it had to be
Spiro Ditas. He must have gone and gotten botulism from chicken wings at Anchor Bar or something like that on Saturday night because he was
very negative.
He was in a foul mood, and But anyway,
there was a record set this last week in the NFL, and Mike and I are definitely happy about it. 4 of the rookie quarterbacks all won. And they were 4-0, and that's never happened since the merger.
Right.
And so that's kind of an amazing thing. And I wrote about it on sportsology.com if people want to check it out. But this is the second article I've done on this class because I don't want to say it's the best class yet because I can't. But I think it's the best class in the last 20 years. And there's 4 out of the 5 already playing, and already Darnold's leading them all with yardage, and Mayfield's second, and Allen's got the most rushing touchdowns. Like, they're all showing different abilities.
Yeah,
keep them in the game. I think it's amazing.
I'm surprised that Allen is not on the injured list with the quality of the offensive line that the Bills have. I mean, he's actually done a lot better than I thought he was with you could drive a Mack truck through them. But yeah, I mean, that's a good thing for the NFL because there's a lot of below average quarterbacks and guys who've been sticking around and hopping from team to team, and they sort of needed new blood. So I think Rosen's the only one who's really not gotten significant action with the Cardinals.
Yeah, he got a win, and he finally, did get significant action. The other thing to point out with all of this is hey, Lamar Jackson's yet to play, and at some point when Flacco goes, there could be 5 guys that come out of this class. If they all stick, we would have to go back a long way to
the best since '83. Kelly, Elway, Marino,
because I think 5 played then. 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And so, that's a cool thing. It's great for the Jets and the Browns and the Bills because they all have 2 wins. And probably at this point of the year, none of those fans would have thought they'd have 2 wins.
I thought the Bills were going to be 0-5. Honestly, that's how bad they are. But they're actually their defense is starting to play well. But okay, let's get to some of the other. What was your other thing? Russ.
The other thing was, so the yesterday's Yankees-Red Sox game, not to rub it in, Mike. I didn't even text you on this because it was just such a blowout. I couldn't do it to you.
I turned it off at 7-0. I knew it was over with.
But Severino did get toasted, and there's a little bit of controversy with it because there's word that he may have been late to the game because he didn't know what time it was going to start. It was a 7:40 start. Now, listen, I blame TBS.
Thank you, because that's what I was going to say.
Hold on. Ted Turner's been doing this for like 30 years with all of his shows. Right. 7:40, 7:35. And then games now are starting to run this way. It is annoying. And what happened was Severino, when he got to warm up, he literally only had 8 minutes to warm up. Now, Larry Rothschild was yelling for him to sort of get moving because I don't think Severino knew that the clock was ticking and he didn't have much time left. After the game, though, in typical Yankee fashion, Aaron Boone tried to cover it up. And actually, Severino, when he was quoted, said, well, Ron Darling, and I don't know who he is, which is the classic cover-up line. If you want to get caught in a lie, say you don't know who the guy is.
Yeah.
Was a major leaguer and is doing all the games and does pre-interviews with all the players.
Yeah, Luis, let me give you a clue. He's a guy who won a World Series, unlike you.
Yeah.
You know, and all you've been doing in the playoffs in your career is crap the bed, like you did against the Twins last year in the wild card game, and then last night. Yeah, he pitched good in the wild card game this year, but you know, honestly, he's pitched like crap in the second half of the season, and this is just on a long line. He is not a stopper in terms of a starting pitcher. Those are guys like DeGrom and Verlander and Clayton Kershaw. It's not Luis Severino. He could be the most overrated pitcher in baseball.
Yeah. I find in this day and age, a story like this being really troubling because you would think the Yankees would have all this locked down, like guys would all know what's going on. They'd all be on, especially the starting pitcher. Like,
well, I'm going to echo what you said. I blame TBS because they started both games at Fenway at 8:00. So there was no reason for him to assume that it was changed because there wasn't any kind of change of the Central Time Zone and Eastern Time Zone. There's no reason for them other than it was a weekday and they figured it was Friday, Saturday. They could do 8:00 on Friday, Saturday. So why not do 8:00? I mean, World Series games last till 1:00 in the morning anyway. So what the hell?
I know. TV is the worst for this though, because if you ever remember like shows that would play there, the replays, they would start at like 7:35 and they would run it into the next hour. Now we do see a lot of stations doing that annoyingly to screw up your DVR or Peter's PVR because they'll have a show run till 10:01 now. So it gets into the next time slot.
Yeah. Let me give you a little pet peeve, but it was corrected quickly. And I will critique something until it's the way that I think it should be, and then
which isn't always the right way. I do want to point that out.
Well, yes, but okay. I put down the $59 to purchase the AHL TV access because. I'm covering the Leafs for 41 games, and I'd love to get to as many Marley games as I can, but I won't be able to get to a lot of them. So I need to watch that team because there are a lot of players who are probably going to be playing for the Leafs. So I put down the money to buy AHL TV, and I start watching their first game. And for I would say the first 8 minutes of the first period, the camera was a camera from Etobicoke. From like a suburb. It was like up in the roof in the corner, and it was a look from one. It was basically like you were watching the game from like the 500 level at the Sky Dome. That's how bad it was. They didn't tap into the broadcast. And only after, like, I sent an email because I had just subscribed and said, what's going on here? This is not worth the money if this is all we're going to get. Basically the players being like a quarter of an inch, and then they switched over and they had co-opted I think it's the Leaf Nation Network broadcast. So if it's that, if you're getting that or the scoreboard video, which is basically a decent angle, it's a worthwhile, and I would suggest people get it if they want to track the Marlies or whatever team they're fans of, their AHL team. But if it was that corner view, it isn't worth it. So hopefully that problem was a small thing, and it was rectified. So hopefully it'll go forward that way. And it was a pretty good presentation after that. So, all right.
Can I do a little PSA? I'm just having a rant here because I'm getting 1,000 emails right now. I'm in the middle of, if you've got a child playing in hockey or any sport, doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, volleyball, ringette, you pick a sport. Just because you paid the entrance fee and the registration fee to cover the costs of your child playing does not entitle you to sit back and criticize volunteers from your armchair. It's ridiculous. I'm dealing with crap right now that I can't even believe. And I don't even have a kid playing hockey, and I'm still volunteering for it. I put in at least 100 hours since September.
What are these people like? Is this?
I just don't get it. And then to criticize, and I'm just using hockey because that's what I'm involved in. I know what's happening in 30 other sports.
Right.
And we're not paid to do this. We're not paid to take your complaints about how the system works. Yeah. We're here to make it so that your kids get an opportunity to have recreation. And it's getting out of hand. The more money in sports the parents put in away from the actual games, the more they think they're entitled to complain while they sit back and write checks thinking someone else can do the work.
Well, Little League and stuff. And I used to think like my mom yelling for me was embarrassing. But in retrospect, my parents were great. They never said anything. They never argued with the umpire. The only time my mother ever intervened, I was pitching a game, and while I was batting, I got hit in the eye with the ball. Mm-hmm. And my eye was blowing up, but I did want to stay in the game. And she spoke to the coach, and she pretty much took me out of the game. And then I had to go to the eye doctor. So I get it. That was fair. But this is just I don't understand these parents.
No, I understand them completely. Every parent thinks they're entitled because they think that their child is on a course to the NHL or to Major League Baseball or to the NBA. They all think that the only roadblock is opportunity, and some of these youth coaches who don't give their little Johnny a chance to get viewed, get exposure, and get time on ice and all that. It's like, okay, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's 1,000,001 shot that your kid's going to get, even to junior, let alone the NHL. So instead of like hurling accusations and yelling and screaming and pissing and moaning, just let your kid enjoy.
But let the volunteers do their things and actually volunteer and help out.
Yeah, but they're just embarrassing their kid, and they don't realize how it devastates their kid, and they get made fun of when the parents aren't around. That's the part that parents don't see.
And they all think it's a conspiracy that their child is not getting, his son is his dad is the coach, so he's getting more playing time than my son.
So I'm going to bring this up real quick. So one time that did happen with me, right? For like 3 years in a row, this one guy kept drafting me, and the coach's son just kept playing the same positions I would. I would switch I was playing outfield, first base, shortstop, and whatever I played, he was playing. So mid-season, I quit. I said, you know what? I'm better than your son. I don't like what you're doing, and I quit, right? I got a phone call like later in the season, a month later, saying, we have a 1-game playoff. If we win this game, we're in the World Series. We need you. And he said I could play anywhere I want. And I said, all right, you know what? Put me in center field, because I knew his kid didn't play center field. And he goes, fine, I will put you there, and I won't touch you. And we played in the World Series, and I struck out with bases loaded, and we lost by 4 runs, and that was that. So in our regional World Series, and then I stopped playing organized baseball for a little while. But the point was, sometimes that does happen, and let your kid handle it.
Yeah, this is how bad my little league team was. First of all, the all-star team in our little league was called the Yankees, and the worst, and all the good players were on that team, and the worst team in the league was the Indians, and I was on the Indians, and they were so bad that they put me, who has always been challenged in terms of speed. I was their center fielder, Russ, because can you imagine? I wasn't exactly Rick Manning, Mr. Gold Glover. and when I batted, I usually used to close my eyes when I swung. So
say Andrew Jones, just because that's at least making it 20 years closer.
Yes, there you go. All right, hello hockey world. Today is Tuesday, October 9th, 2018.
I'm Peter Teste, nursing lamb hangover in Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I have to wait six weeks to get my load of tryptophan. And we'll talk about some of the first few games of the NHL season. Hopefully, Ak will be joining us in any moment. Russ, let's start with what you were talking about. Now, Anaheim, and here's an interesting thing. We're not going to center on Anaheim and Toronto, but just because of those are the two holdout impasses. I know that a lot of people are getting their dander up because they're saying that they're holdouts. They're not holdouts. These are RFA players, Nick Ritchie and William Nylander, who have.
That's what makes it a holdout. See, Ken Campbell's arguing your case, and they said it on the broadcast that Nick Ritchie's a holdout, and it is a holdout because here's the end of the day. At the end of the day, yes, is that player free to go anywhere? Sure. Anywhere but the NHL. So like when you're basically saying, well, the guy's free to play and there's nothing holding him there, it's really not true because the rights are holding him there. And if he ever wants to play in the NHL again, he has to do something with those rights. Now,
Nick Ritchie and William Nylander, their entry-level deals expired. Their RFAs, they can be offer sheeted, but nobody's going to do that because this is the NHL. They could go play in Europe. There's a December 1st deadline for them to sign with their NHL club. Otherwise, they cannot play for the rest of the year. Anaheim, surprisingly, is 3-0 to start the season. The Maple Leafs are 2-1. And have scored, 13 goals in 3 games. So I don't think either one of them are missing Nick Ritchie and William Nylander right now. So I think the leverage of both of these players is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. Here's the fluky part of what's going on. So, like, as an example, I watched some of that Anaheim game. Mike Green's out. Daly's out. Like, half their blue line's out. So Anaheim was going to win, right? So that's one thing. And then if you do look around the league, there's an awful lot of young guys playing. Like Isaac Lundestrom played yesterday for Anaheim. If you'd have said to me he was going to play preseason, I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, I know he's a big guy and he's got some NHL transferable skills for sure. I wouldn't have guessed that they were going to use him, but they had to. Like they were running out of forwards. They're missing so many guys. So
and they're using Troy Terry in shootouts, which is smart because he's good at them.
But here's the thing. So right now, I'm not putting too much stock into some of the play. And when we talk about teams and such, I could point out instances. But there's so many injuries right now that I think it's literally going to take 10, 15 games until you start seeing the team that you're expecting to see.
Well, yeah, and Peter, this is the thing, because I saw, and I want to talk about this a little more. But the Leafs Hawks game on Sunday night, it was extremely entertaining. But I said, entertaining to everybody but Mike Babcock. He's stocking up on Pepto-Bismol because right now, like, I mean, they were down 2-0. They came back. They took a 3-2 lead, 3-3, 4-3, 5-4, 5-5, 6. They had 2 1-goal leads and Chicago pulled the goaltender, and Garrett Sparks and the Leafs defense gives up 2 extra attacker goals in less than a minute before Morgan Rielly scores in overtime. I mean, I know that early in the season, because last year the Leafs, their home opener, they played the Rangers. It was an 8-5 game. It was this wild offensive game. And early in the season, these teams, their defensive structure is not really formed. But you can get some clues about where teams are at in terms of how they're playing early in the year. And I don't see any upgrade or any difference in the Leafs defense than it was last year. It's basically
I don't think there's any. And it's going to be interesting. I think we all know, and it's been written about. You've talked about it. I mean, for over a calendar year, Mike. But if Mike Babcock is going to rely on Ron Hainsey in the role he's in, this is going to be a bit of a fire drill for the Leafs until they can not do that. And that's the biggest challenge. for them and what's going on. Now, the other part to this equation, though, and I have not liked what I've seen from the Jets defense in 2 games either, and there's challenges there, and I think there's going to be some rude awakening for some fans who are Toby Enstrom haters, but forwards also have to understand their role in this too, in how the defensive systems move, how they have to be in position to get breakouts. And I've seen times where there's been defensemen, at least in the 2 games I watched for the Jets, looking to make that pass, and there's not a forward anywhere. And for the Leafs, that's going to be 3 times more critical based on what they have up the middle and along the wings. And if the guys aren't there, like, that's their get out of jail. That's their system. Get the puck out fast. But the forwards have to be there to take that pass. And it's been a bit of a mess. And it's been a mess for a few teams.
It's a lot of teams. Here's what I've noticed. In a league that's done everything to create more offense, coaches want to play more defense. Problem is, in the preseason, how often did these defensemen play together? Like, if you looked at the Sharks game against the Devils, Vlasic and Erik Karlsson looked like complete strangers. They had one play in a corner where both of them were like, you get the puck, and literally the puck was just dug out of the corner, thrown in front of the net, and it's a goal. And we're seeing some of that, but we're seeing like rustiness because these guys don't play enough in the preseason. This is preseason we're watching.
Well, that's a valid point, but the funny thing is, to go back specifically to what I was talking about with the Leafs, Hainsey and Riley were together from the very beginning. So were Gardner and Zaitsev. For the most part, Dermott and Ozhiganov, and they played Marincin in the last game. These guys played together through most of the preseason. They're still Hainsey had a bad first game. Gardner has been Jake Gardner. He's been making, he's a double-edged sword. He's great offensively, but he kills them defensively. It didn't matter that they were used to playing with each other or that they had played. They're just not up to snuff. And
some of those guys, sure. But I'm talking about some of the stars. Like, if you remember a couple weeks ago, I had said there's going to be an adjustment period for the Sharks with Erik Karlsson coming in there because of touches and the power play. Their power play is 0 for 10 right now. So that's not going to last.
Right.
What happens when you bring in a star too?
Now, I wanted to talk of a couple. Now we haven't had a show since Friday. So
by the way, I do want to break this in. You'll love this, Mike.
Yep.
Thomas wouldn't be shocked if the Leafs missed the playoffs.
Oh, please. I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, and God, that kind of stuff just, it's just idiotic. I mean, are they missing the playoffs? No. If they play like this, are they a 1 round and out team?
That's
very possibly. And I've said that, for all. I mean, and this is the concern. And again, they're not making this into a Leaf show, but I have to make this point. They've scored 13 goals right now. 12 of the goals have come from Matthews, Tavares, Marner, and Morgan Riley. In terms of secondary offense, it's been 1 goal, and that was Kasperi Kapanen after he got moved to the Matthews line. So no, you're getting no production out of your 3rd line, your 4th line.
How many games? 3 games?
3 games.
Just settle down.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not saying set Toronto on fire. This is panic in the streets. I'm just saying there are signs there that are sort of emphasizing the concerns that have been there. So, go ahead.
Here's how I look at the first 10 games. Win-loss record paramount. You've got to be treading water. You've got to be 500 after 10. You need that. Because if you're not, you've got the hole just becomes harder to dig out of after 10. You got to be 500. That's the first thing I look at. Then I look at how do they get to 500? Are they where's the scoring coming from? Are they generating enough shot attempts? Then you look at what's going on. How have the losses come? Is it because they're getting shelled on, like with shots? Is the goalie being a sieve? What's the cause of that record? And right now, after 3 games, I think it's easiest. You've got 1 little point. Okay, top line scoring, which is to be expected with the Leafs. Right. Mm-hmm. But where are the goals coming from and how are they coming? That's the part that's going to be the kicker. They can score. And you know what? Eventually one night, or two nights, they're going to have a bad night, and the Tavares isn't going to score, or Matthews isn't going to score. But if that means the other team's doing their job, then the other guys might pop up. It's more about the Leafs letting in goals, Mike, and letting in going the other way. And that's what I think, I wouldn't worry about the secondary scoring as much as where are the goals against coming from. And that's the bigger issue. And, they got to tread water for 10 games. So every team does. Get your 10 games in, see what it is, but then figure out what's gone wrong in that. Yeah. It was the goalie super hot. And I'll give you a prime example was last year with the Jets. They lost the first two in embarrassing fashion.
Yeah, one of them.
Then Toronto, I just an absolute beat down of epic proportions.
Right.
And then they got slaughtered in Calgary. They threw in Hellebuck, who was at that point the backup, and he carried the team while they sorted the rest of it out. Mm-hmm. So that's how the Jets got themselves out of trouble. But it took 10 to 15 games for that to happen.
Right. And
rely on a goaltender. So you got to find out where the strengths are, how you can exploit them more and stuff. 3 games, I wouldn't worry about the secondary scoring too much. I'd worry about why there's all these goals coming back.
I'm
that deep.
That's far down on the list. And my number one concern regarding the Leafs' viability is their defense. And that's, like I said, I've been talking about that for a decade. But the other thing is the backup goaltending, and Garrett Sparks lets in 6 goals on 31 shots, and they're heavily dependent on Frederik Andersen, and Frederik Andersen did not have a good game against Ottawa, and they lost to the lowly Senators because Frederik Andersen, I think, let in 4 goals on like 22 or 23 shots. When he plays like that, they can't win. So they're heavily dependent on him standing on his head and looking for their defense to play at least average. And that, going forward, we'll see how things adjust as the league tightens up. A couple things here, just one that just popped up, and it's not confirmed yet, but there is some indication because the name of Rick Nash has been mentioned, and the whole situation with him, but not sure that if he was going to continue his career. There were apparently 3 or 4 teams that were interested in signing him on a long-term deal around July 1st, and he basically took himself off the market. There are indications now that he's going to file his paperwork with the NHL and that he plans to retire. I'm a little surprised, Russ, but based on the fact that he's had a number of concussions, and I think he just had his 3rd child, and he's made a ton of money, I don't blame him, and I can understand why maybe he said that's enough.
Well, did he say he's officially done?
I mean, if he's filing paperwork, that means, he's done.
Yeah. And although you can unfile the paperwork too.
Sure.
You can. But yeah, I guess he has put his life ahead of his hockey career. The concussions was bad. He's a young guy. He has a family. He does have a lot of money. I don't blame him one bit. But he is young enough that in a couple of years, would he unfile the paperwork? Didn't Mario Lemieux file that paperwork? Now, granted, he was still missed.
And Guy Lafleur too. I mean, it's not saying you're banned forever.
34. I'm saying in 2 years, if all of a sudden his concussion outlook looks a lot better at 36, some bug may hit him and say, you know what, I want to play again.
But in the here and now. Yeah, I mean, for teams that might have been interested in adding somebody and him being out there as an unsigned free agent, that was supposedly was going to be an option for teams like Boston, who might be looking for a winger. Or I know that there were some connections to Toronto because of Babcock and him playing for Canada in the Olympics. But I mean, we'll see how it's not official. It's just it was just from a tweet from somebody relatively that I don't know, but relatively established. So we'll see if that comes out.
I remain skeptical, not because I don't believe Rick Nash or this thing, just that I know Rick Nash loves hockey to the point where I'm sort of like thinking he will do a Forsberg and late into this season he might come back.
Now, okay, let's look at some of the games on the weekend. The Bruins yesterday they beat Ottawa 6-3, and Russ, the old formula is put Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak together and to let them just dominate, and they scored 11 points in a 6-3 victory over the Senators. And the thing is that Boston, after getting slapped around by the Capitals in the opener, they come back and beat Buffalo convincingly here, and then beat Ottawa. Not exactly two of the top teams in the league. But this is why, you know, the Bruins, I mean, for all those people who think that they may slip back, they still have those players with the championship pedigree, and they have a lot of talent. I still think this team is a top 3 team in the Atlantic Division.
They are, but the Bruins did just figure out in that game, let's just throw everything to the net, and we'll just knock it in right there. We'll get second and third chances because Anderson does give up rebounds. His defense isn't strong enough to clear it. They have a lot of, you know, good defensemen. They don't have a lot of strong defensemen. Like Cece's a strong one, but they don't have a lot of those guys. And they lost the battle in the crease badly. I watched those goals. It was just like, yeah, just throw it to the net. Good things will happen.
Peter, I mean, I look at Boston. They're a matchup problem for most teams in the league when they put those guys together. Now, you can also say they put all their eggs in one basket, and if you stop them, then they're in trouble. But it's almost impossible to stop them. That line, that line.
Yeah, it is. They're the prototypical line that, you know, every team wants to have, and they're deadly. I mean, I'm not sure where Tuukka Rask is this year, but that's another issue. And I'm still, I mean, the Bruins are the kind of team that when they're on, man, do they look good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take them much for the train to come off the rails either. And that's the thing I'd be worried about if I were a Bruins fan is, like, you know, when things are firing all cylinders, they're a deadly, deadly team. And not every team is like that when they're firing on all cylinders. The Bruins are. Yeah. And it's just when it comes off the rails, it really comes off. It'll be interesting to watch them. But yeah, the Bergeron line is poetry if you're a hockey geek, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I realize, folks, and you know, part of the job of a show like this is to analyze what has happened. We know that it's only 3 games. We know that it's a moment. It's an 82 game schedule, but we can only analyze what has happened. And one of the things, and we'll just go around the league here, one of the things about the Florida Panthers that a lot of people were saying was, you know, they're a really good team. And I agree with that. But in my critique of them, I said, well, I think they're a very good team, and I think they can make the playoffs if Roberto Luongo stays healthy. And it took 1 game for Roberto Luongo to get hurt. And it wasn't something, internal. It wasn't something that it just happened. It was a player, one of his own players fell on him, and he fell on his right knee, and he's out to, I think it was 2 to 4 weeks with an MCL sprain. So it was something, you couldn't foresee, but you can foresee this with Luongo. He's extremely brittle. He's had trouble staying healthy. And this is the problem with the Florida Panthers. James Reimer is not a number 1 goaltender. They need Luongo being Luongo to be, I think, a competitive team. If they have to go with Reimer, it's only 2 to 4 weeks, but if they have to go with Reimer for, I'd say, more than 25 games, they're in deep trouble, Russ.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go there yet. I get what you're saying about Luongo. We all knew he would miss some time. Look, Carey Price has bad knees. I mean, there's a lot of goalies that have played like that, and he's a much younger guy. It happens. But, yeah, I'm not a big Reimer fan. I'm kind of looking to see who else is in their system.
Well, Hutchinson will get called up now.
So, yeah, I mean, look, this could be Hutchinson's big break. Like, this could be like a Craig Anderson moment if Reimer loses a few games, throw him in. This could be a big moment for him. That's why I was thinking it was Hutchinson. So it's smart that they have him, actually.
Yeah, you know what? And if Hutchinson still has his head on right, because he played outrageously well on the Moose last year. Like his GAA was like 1, his save percentage was like 930. It was unconscious what he was doing. In fact, it was in the 940s for a stretch. It was unconscious. All he has to do is show a little bit of that, and he could literally change the direction that his career is going in if he gets another shot, if he gets that shot with the Panthers for any stretch of time that matters. Maybe even a bit of a Reimer fail and he can ride for a little bit. Hutchinson's got game, and he might have it. And he could get picked up by a team. I mean, he won't get traded if Florida needs him, but this could be the defining point for him of whether he's going to be in the NHL anymore after the season or not. He's got to use this opportunity. There's your hot take. But it's true. I mean, you don't get on, like, for a guy who just got assigned to the minors, has been trying to be an NHL regular. These are what we've watched this for 40 years.
Right.
This is what you dream of. And this is what you have to take advantage of. And now more so than ever with the level of competition in the NHL.
Yeah.
Now the New York Islanders, who I think a lot of people predicted doom and gloom, and I still do. But they've started out fairly well, 2-1. They get a 35 save shutout out of Robin Lehner, 4-0 victory over San Jose. And Russ, you look at the scoring for the Islanders. It wasn't Barzal. I think he had 1 assist. It was the big Cizikas, Clutterbuck, and Matt Martin line. Martin gets a goal. Cizikas gets a goal and an assist. It was their third and fourth line. Now, I don't think that's sustainable. Obviously, I think they need guys like Anders Lee and Barzal and Brock Nelson and those guys to really pick it up. I mean, the key for them is if Leonard plays like this, then they have a chance to make the playoffs. But the problem is, if you look at Leonard's career in Ottawa and in Buffalo, he's never been able to string it together. There's always been that hiccup, or he'll have 2 great games and then he'll cost you a game. So that's why I think maybe this is not sustainable.
Well, I think it's 50% Leonard playing really, really well, because, like I said, I've always liked him, and 50%. Well, the Sharks just lost Thornton, and Erik Karlsson has not really worked in their lineup yet, and it's really sort of blown apart the team, which is what I thought could happen. I mean, again, the San Jose Sharks are 0 for 10 on the power play. Is that a function of the Islanders having the best penalty kill in the league? No. That's a function of them having early season woes, and they're a West Coast team on the road. So I think they took advantage. They got the points. That's great. I can't look too far into it. I watched a fair amount of that game, but I did like what I saw out of Leonard. There's no way you wouldn't. But again, it's not like the Sharks didn't get chances. Of course they did. So we'll see what happens with the Islanders.
Yeah. Now, the Buffalo Sabres, and I know that Eck and you and I were going back and forth about the Sabres after their auspicious beginning in the game against Boston. They've registered a couple victories, and remember, I said that I thought the Sabres were going to be a better team. You couldn't be much worse than they were last year, and I think some of the additions that they made, including Skinner, and adding Middlestat, and obviously Rasmus Dahlin, that they were going to be a better team, but. The sentiment in Buffalo after the opener was, here we go again. This fan base is pissed off and does not want to see a team that doesn't play with any kind of emotion. But they've sort of recovered. They had a 3-1 win against the Rangers, and then they win convincingly over Vegas yesterday. But it was
here's a newsflash. In case you haven't figured it out, most teams are going to win against the Rangers. Like I said, they were going to be a bottom 5 team. They are, and so. I don't even count a win against the Rangers as a win. They let Georgiev stay in for 7 goals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they threw him to the Wolves. Yeah. And with the Sabres yesterday against Vegas, Jack Eichel had a couple goals. And when Eichel scores, and he's, Eichel's one of the better players in the league, folks. So it's like,
Anna did not like the Venom Brisk tea when I let her smell it. Whoa.
Well, don't worry, Kaya likes it. But the Sabre, they've gotten pretty good goaltending out of Carter Hutton. I don't know whether that is sustainable. I think Carter Hutton is a good 1B or backup. I don't know whether he's a starter, and I know Housley has confidence in him because I believe Housley and him were in Nashville together, so he knows him from the past. I just think if they're going to succeed in the next couple of years, it's going to be with a guy like Allmark as their number one, and not with Carter Hutton. But the young guys, Russ, haven't really kicked it in yet. It's been Eichel, it's been the veteran guys like Pominville and Scandella who scored some goals yesterday. If they're veteran guys, and I consider now Eichel a veteran guy because he's been there for 2 or 3 years, they pick it up. It takes a little of the pressure off of those young guys to really produce right away.
Yeah, their skating is as a team is so much more improved with Dahlin in there and Skinner. You could already see the difference with Skinner there, but that's a tough situation because they're, will they be able to re-sign Skinner? That's something where you have to look beyond this year. Right. This could be a stepping stone for Skinner, and then all of a sudden replacing Skinner could be a massive thing. But for this season, he looks great, and so the team, Eichel does look very confident, and he should. And even coming off of, what you said after the early season stuff, I like the way Eichel has bounced back, and fans were getting on the team, but he's not a guy that really worries about that. Evan Rodriguez looks good, and that's a guy who I told you, plays with Eichel, had played with Eichel. All these things are a positive. Defense over a long season is the thing here, and that's where right now we're seeing a lot of high-scoring games, and I've seen a lot of media people saying, "Hey, we love the offense. We know it's not going to last."
Right.
And that's because they know coaches are going to clamp down. So,
Peter, I got some criticism for sort of jabbing at the Edmonton Oilers after their game in Sweden against New Jersey because they lost because of what we've consistently said has been their big problem. If Cam Talbot doesn't stand on his head, their defense is going to kill them. And their defense against New Jersey in the opener, and granted, they're traveling, they're playing in Europe, they're going to be, I'll take all that into consideration, but you look at that, and this is a team that traded for a year back, signed a turnstile in Jason Garrison, is playing Chris Russell 20 plus minutes. There's so much of a burden on Connor McDavid to be superhuman just to get that team to be competitive for a playoff spot. And there are some people who predicted them to finish first in the Pacific. I don't know if they're making the playoffs.
Connor McDavid could put up Lemieux and Gretzky numbers, and it may not do a bloody thing to help the Oilers with the way their back end is formed. And yeah, losing Sekera, right, was a bit of a blow to them. But this is a team that is so awkwardly formed to build something on the back end. Like, it just looks like a really bad jigsaw puzzle where they're forcing guys to fit in. There's nothing like, you almost feel like I could give a rat's patooey about the Edmonton Oilers in terms of all the abuse any team I've ever supported or liked has taken from that franchise over the years. Right. So, you don't care. It's like a Leafs fan with the Canadians. You revel in their suffering. But in this case, their suffering is so confounding, given the assets they've had, the luck they've had with draft lotteries, that they still can't put this together and figure it out. Maybe they're one of those teams where they'll fix the defense over time and it needs more time. Maybe there's one of those teams that should never have. They need a shorter preseason because they need to start working like with real NHL players to do real NHL things. Maybe there's a whole lot of reasons, but there are possibilities to improve that defense. And it just seems that they cannot find a way to make a deal. And I've said this for years. Part of being a GM isn't just figuring out how to sign a contract, isn't figuring out how to get value. It's about selling your team and being a salesman to get the right players there, however it takes, with other GMs, with agents, with who cares. You have to be a salesman too. And I don't think Peter Chiarelli could sell a bar of soap and a salmon cannery to clean up. It's that brutal.
I will say this. I wasn't shocked that they lost, but again, I'm not going to make much of the overseas game. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that Kale Yamamoto made the team, because we all were really kind of unsure whether that would happen. And I see Milan Lucic is already, extolling his virtues, saying how he plays well in front of the net. I mean, yes. I just hope they keep Kale Yamamoto up there. I can't guarantee you they're going to do the right thing with him. But if they do, that will be a big boon to their second line. Like, that will ignite their second line, because he is a fire starter. That's, that could help offset what will be a mediocre defense. And maybe that will keep them in more games. that's, to me, that's the hope. But again, hopefully that doesn't get derailed. I'll tell you now that I know Yamamoto's in the lineup, I would have him on the top line. I wouldn't care about Ty Ratty.
Sure.
You put Yamamoto on that top line, you will have one of the best top lines in the league, because speed-wise, you won't be able to keep up with them.
That's like, I mean, the first couple games, the Leafs were putting Tyler Ennis on the top line with Marleau and Matthews, and I knew the reason why they were doing it because, Ennis is a veteran guy, and I thought he played well, but it was a dramatic difference when they moved Kapanen up with his speed on that line. They scored 2 goals in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I saw the difference too when Kapanen played with them.
Yeah, and Ennis was never signed to be a top line winger. He was signed to be a 3rd or 4th liner, so it was a little unfair. He was taking some criticism. But, when you got a guy with a skill set of Yamamoto, you put him in a position where he's best suited to succeed.
That second line's fine. I just think he should be top line, but that's just me.
Yeah. Now, a few news and notes here, and Russ, you're going to the home opener for the Flyers. I don't know who they're playing. Who are they playing tonight?
Sharks.
Okay. And it would have been the first game to see James Van Riemsdyk in a Flyers uniform since 2012, but Van Riemsdyk is out 5 to 6 weeks. What was it? A lower body injury, correct?
Side of his knee.
Okay, so I mean, he's been fairly durable. The only time he's had any kind of significant injury when he was in Toronto was the year that they ended up finishing last overall. They shut him down after I think he broke a finger or something like that. And I still think that he could have come back, but they were in pursuit of 30th place. Yeah, but that's a big loss for the Flyers.
It is. The Flyers sometimes can't get out of their own way with bad luck and injuries. It's just I've seen it pile up over the years. The one thing I'll say, though, is with this, and I know Mike doesn't want to hear it, Gritty is actually on Calvin Pickard's mask. So Calvin Pickard will start Wednesday, and Gritty is on the mask. Like, I don't even know what to say about that. But moving past that, because I'm sure I will see Gritty up close and personal tonight, and I'll ignore him.
Make sure you bring your taser.
This is a tough game for the Flyers because I have a feeling the Sharks are going to be annoyed and with the way they played against the Islanders. And so now, even though they're coming off, like they played yesterday, right? So it's a back-to-back situation.
Right.
The Sharks will probably put a lot of pressure on early. I expect the Flyers will win this one, but you never know. I mean, Vorobiev has looked good right now at that 3C spot. That's good. So that's been helping with their team speed. So right now, if the Flyers just get scoring out of Voracek and Simmons right now looks like the old Wade Simmons. So luckily, the Flyers still have him even after getting Van Riemsdyk, because now it's not that big of a blow.
And how does Couturier look? Does he look slower than?
No, I think he looks fine. I haven't noticed a great difference. I mean, I don't think he's going to light it up early on like he did last year, but he's been playing well enough. Like, actually, their defense has been playing well enough, except now Christian Folin is the guy that all the fans want to beat on, and they either want to beat on him for the bad play or they want to beat on him because he's holding back somebody else. But whatever.
Now, there are certain instances where a fan vote on a certain item should be ignored. And I think this is one of them. The unofficial fan vote in Seattle regarding their future NHL team, the name that was the most popular was the Seattle Sockeyes. Yeah. I think that's horrible.
I don't think it's horrible. I think the Totems was a better choice.
I think the Metropolitans is the best one.
Yeah, but
there's a history there.
Yeah, the Metropolitans, like, you don't really want to go there and have them be almost the identical name to another franchise. So I think Sockeye Salmon, I don't think it's horrible. Look, I like Sockeye Salmon, just for the record. It's very good.
It's the most underrated salmon out there. People, everyone wants a Chinook or a King.
No. The Sockeye's really good.
Sockeye's the one you go with.
I mean, Peter's right. That's a good salmon.
I really want a team named after something I want to eat with some lemon and dill.
No, I don't put lemon and dill. You know what I use? I use that Chef Paul stuff in the can.
Oh, I'll give you the best sockeye recipe later. It'll change the way you eat salmon. It'll blow your mind. However, The one name I love, and it won't happen, but the Seattle Kraken.
Oh yeah, that was a
nautical theme. I think we're going to see a nautical theme or potentially an aviation theme with a little history with the Boeing there.
Yeah.
You know, and it'll be interesting.
The Seattle Flying Fortresses.
The Seattle Orcas.
Well, that would be. I mean, I think Vancouver would have a problem with that since they've had the orca on their emblem.
I don't think the league would allow it, but you know, you never know. You know, and you got to remember how these things work. They do name things, they do all sorts of stuff. They work with consultants, they work with things, and then you end up with the Golden Knight. So who knows? It's an interesting process, but I don't know. I think hockey, I was always down on hockey in Seattle. I never thought it would work. I never thought it was a good move, even its proximity to Vancouver. I still have some doubts, but my doubts are not quite where they used to be. An interesting thing is I'm a huge Seahawks fan. I follow a lot of Seahawks people. Out of that community, there are people like who have no interest in hockey whatsoever. So I think we're going to see a real polarizing sort of thing here. It's going to be like black licorice. The people who want it are really going to want it. And then there's going to be a whole other who either you might turn some of them or you won't turn any of them.
I'm a black licorice guy, just so
well, I think
it's going to be very interesting to watch. I hope it succeeds, but
I think what they're aiming for here, Peter, is because I don't think there's a great deal of overlap between the fans who loved the MLS team there and Seahawks fans. I think that they're hoping to carve their own little niche. You know, it's a big enough metropolitan community and close enough to Canada that you may get fans coming over coming over the border who aren't Canucks fans or who would be amenable to a Seattle team, and get enough fans there to you know, I mean, it's a big TV market, and that's why the NHL wants to go there.
I do want to mention this. The Seattle thing will work itself out. Flyers lines were just announced, so Lindblom's still on that second line. He's actually had a great start to the season, and that's also been like a big boost for them. So you've got Giroux, Couturier, Voracek, Lindblom, Nolan Patrick, Konechny. Now Jordan Wheel is on the third line, but not as the center, like Ron Hextall thought at the start of the year. They're keeping Vorobiev at center, but he's playing the wing with Simmons, and then Lawton, Laterra, Raffle. Again, fans hate Yuri Laterra, but whatever. He's physical and he can penalty kill, so that's why he's there. That's a pretty good. It's a pretty good four lines. The fourth line's a little weak, but and the pairings are the pairings. Provorov and Gostisbehere, Hag, and McDonald and Sanheim Gudas. That's going to be that way for a while.
Russ, you saw this coming, and it's not exactly a shock, but for I'm not sure if it was the opening game at Barclays, but the game yesterday against Anaheim on a holiday Monday, less than 9,000 fans for the Islanders Ducks game.
Yeah,
8,790 fans. You know, it would be one thing if it was a Tuesday night. We've seen, you know, games in Florida or in other places where, you know, that you hardly believe that there's 5 people there. But we're talking, you know, Columbus Day Monday in New York, where I think it was I'm pretty sure it was an afternoon game because the Yankees game was at night, and they only got 8,800 fans. That's not good.
No, it's awful, and actually, that's probably going to get worse. And I think you probably had a lot of kids there for that game. Look, Long Island fans don't want to go to Brooklyn. They don't. And now that they know they're getting a certain amount of games at the Coliseum, they'll all sell out, and fewer people will go to Brooklyn now. That is going to be a fact of life. My big question is, because the first game is like December 1st, is the SUV going to be there, or is it just going to be in Brooklyn? Like, I want to know.
I doubt it. There's no room to put the SUV at the
yeah, that's a good point.
There's no platform. Come on.
Right.
Okay. Now, I don't, you know, I'm not so much of an old fogey that I have a problem with this. But I know some people did in the Leafs Hawks game. And, you know, first, Austin Matthews, when he scored the winning goal in overtime against Montreal, he sort of in his celebration did this sort of like, it almost looked like, you know, if he didn't have gloves on, it almost looked like a Johnny Manziel rubbing his fingers, but it was sort of like, yeah, here you come. Then he scores the goal after the to put the Leafs back in the lead after Patrick Kane had scored with the extra attacker, and Matthews does the, put his hands to his ear type of thing, silencing the crowd. And then when Patrick Kane comes back and scores the tying goal, he mimics that and does the same thing. Yeah. Now, we've seen already that there's still that old world hockey mentality with the Lars Eller thing with Brad Marchand giving him a knuckle sandwich for celebrating in front of the bench. I don't think that this was sort of playful, but I think that mentality is still around the league. And if players start doing that more and more, like players in the NBA or these ridiculous celebrations in the NFL go on, I think there's going to be some sort of repercussion in terms of play.
I mean, there's no question it will get to a point in the season and players, Patrick Kane and otherwise, are going to get targeted if they keep it up. A couple of things. So Henry Okuharu, I didn't know had made the team, but I guess the Leafs know he made it because he had 3 assists.
Yeah.
But he was always a gifted power play guy with a great shot. Like those are the 2 things that I always liked about him. So I could see that being a seamless transition for him, and that keeps them from having to worry about Adam Boquist for a little while. So that was good. I also watched Duncan Keith away from the puck. He's not the same defenseman.
No, and neither is Seabrook.
Seabrook we already knew. Keith was the guy who I kind of wondered, and boy, I saw him just not making plays that he used to make, and that's what's going to really hurt the Blackhawks. It has nothing really to do with anything else other than aging talent and not having enough to replace it with. I mean, Cam Ward was okay.
Yeah, he wasn't good in the game against Toronto. And Peter, the funny thing is, Taves has tried to. I think he seemed to be extra motivated this summer after being written out of the top 50 players or top 20 centers or whatever the hell list it was from NHL Network, and he's got 5 goals so far, and they're 2-0-1, but it's all on his back. It's like him and Kane, and Brandon Saad was like a fairly invisible in the game on Sunday. DeBrincat's playing pretty well. I mean, there's not as this team would kill you with waves and waves of talent, and now there's one wave, and if that wave doesn't knock you over, there's nothing to knock you over.
You know what? The tide's gone out on Chicago, and the waves aren't that big anymore, and they don't come in as frequently. And that's what happens when you have an aging, older core and where you generate your motion from. I mean, you look at all the players they've lost over the years, whether it be to RFAs, trades, just to maintain their cap thing. This is the warning lesson for all GMs. Now, if you think about why they're there, and it's a cap issue, is it worth 3 Stanley Cups? I bet you 12 out of 10 GMs say yes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, but the fallout from it's always ugly. Like it's just
this is where I think everyone is waiting for the NHL to catch up with something, and that is, when are they going to be ruthless about talent and returns on players and deciding they can let guys walk and keep the cycle going if they're doing enough drafting and development. I think that's certainly what a number of prominent analytics guys are thinking.
Right.
I think they're waiting for a GM to step up and say, no, you're expendable. I'm using you and you're gone. And they want them to be as ruthless as the NFL is.
Right.
No, but you know what? But that's
and the difference being, and Russ, look, I'm not saying
is that no guaranteed
guaranteed contracts.
Right.
But it's also about trading, and it's also about not signing the contract too.
Right.
So in the NHL, it's about not signing the contract. The NFL, you can get out any contract you want. It's just how much guaranteed money are you putting on it.
Is a lawless league and a PA that is the weakest among every sport, right?
Yeah.
Right now, the NHL PA is probably the strongest of any sport. And for as long as Donald Fear and his people are there, you will never see a guy sign a bad contract, because they talk about that and look at that stuff all the time. And players realize how much it benefits or hurts future players. NHL players, the one thing I'll say, and then you can answer, Mike, NHL players, more than any player in any other sport, even though you may see disrespect on the ice, off the ice, they respect each other and their futures more than any sport I see still.
There's a brotherhood that you see in the NHL that you don't really see in other sports.
Yeah.
Well, let's end the show where we started the show, because with the Nylander situation, with Winnipeg, with their boatload of talent and the shitstorm that's going to probably strike next summer with all these players either UFA, RFA, or looking for, decisions are going to have to be made. This is not a situation where you can just sign everybody and, like Brendan Shanahan said, take a little less. I don't think that these players are going to take a little less to stay together. They want to get paid because their careers are finite. They're not going to play for 20 years. They're probably going to play for 10 to 12. And a guy like William Nylander, he wants to stay in Toronto from all indications, but he wants to get paid. And
here's the thing with that. Okay. That's a two-pronger right there, because he wants a long-term deal. Even if the Leafs and him agree on a long-term deal, they're not going to give him like a no trade or no movement.
They can't. It's against the CBA. He has a second contract.
Okay, so there you go. And so that's another reason why Nylander probably won't do it, is because he knows that if he does do it, 2-3 years, he's getting traded. I think he's getting traded in 2 or 3 years either way, Russ. That's the thing. Even if he signs a bridge deal, what I think this is, and Brian Burke has said this on some of the Sportsnet broadcasts, and other people have said this as well. In terms of asset management, it makes more sense to get Nylander locked up on a long-term deal because there's cost certainty. And I'm sure that that's going to be the case with Cheveldayoff in Winnipeg, Peter, because, he's going to sign Line for whatever, the best deal that he can. But guys like Kyle Connor, guys like Roslovic, when his contract comes up, other players who are RFA or even UFA they want to keep, they're going to have to sign them for as little as they possibly can, because then when they do get the opportunity to trade them someplace else, they can get value back because their contracts fit into what the other team wants.
Yeah. There's going to have to be some give on stuff on where you allocate your cap. The Jets right now, I wrote about this a little while ago. They have the second highest cap in the league, cap hit on the league in defense. That's a lot of money tied up. It's just over 29 million. I can't remember who's number one. I think it was,
it has to be Buffalo,
it was the Sharks. It was the Sharks.
Oh, you mean team-wise? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, and the Kings are pretty close too.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of money for what they're getting out of it in some regards, and that's what eventually you have to shift the deck chairs to make sure you're nimble. Teams can't, and if you're not able to be nimble, you got bigger problems, right? Like it's just, it's you've got to be able to address it, and if you can't, then Lord help you, it's going to be ugly.
Yep. All right, guys. All right. Good show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll let everybody know that.
There's one thing you didn't mention. I'm really surprised that you didn't mention it.
Go ahead.
Austin Matthews in the Gore-Tex jacket. You didn't talk about that at all.
I'm not exactly a fashion plate, so I will tip my hat to Austin Matthews. He is doing. He's been in GQ. Now he's wearing this
Gore-Tex, George Costanza-esque jacket.
Yeah, this red jacket that I wouldn't be caught dead in, but like I said, I'm 51, so it's like my sense of style and Austin Matthews, who's 21, they're completely different. I get it. This is a direction he wants to go in his career, and God bless him. It's great. I just wouldn't wear a red jacket. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.